Ladies and gentlemen, leaders are like eagles. They don't flock. You find them one at a time. Tonight, we honor a leader who has stood up and stood out in this community for many years. Tonight, an appreciative community pauses to say thank you, Arnold Pinkney.
Hi, everybody. It's time for another look. I'm Stephanie Phelps here with Anthony Brown. I'm good. I'm really good.
Happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays. And what you just saw was a clip of former Congressman Louis Stokes introducing a very special man, Mr. Arnold Pinkney, for his contributions to our community. And guess what? We have with us on this show Mr. Arnold Pinkney, and it's so good to have you on.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here, Stephanie.
You know, I am really excited. I'm trying to have a calm exterior here, just to have you here. But you know, we're going to talk. We want to know more about you, who you are, you know, and so we want to start by talking about your childhood, your family, of course, Cleveland politics, the Stokes brothers, and just so much more. So let's get started.
Right,
and
let's go with that whole, you know, since Congressman Stokes had made reference to, you know, you're the eagle, not like, you know, you don't fly in the flock. You know, you kind of do your own thing and you kind of soar high. You know, what was it like growing up as a child in Youngstown area?
Youngstown.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think there's no difference in anybody that grew up during the Depression years. You grew up with a poor economic, you know, family. I was fortunate to have, you know, both parents with me until my father passed away when I was 18. It was hard times. We never owned a home, we rented. We never owned an automobile, we used public transportation. And so it was rough, but it was family. And we grew up in a neighborhood in Youngstown, Ohio, where everybody, you know, were together because
everybody was family.
You were together because nobody had anything. So
you probably didn't know you didn't have because everybody still took care of everybody.
Had nothing to compare it with, you know. And we used to walk to school in Youngstown 2 or 3 miles a day and never think anything about it. And so growing up at those times in Youngstown, Ohio, to me was what established the type of conditions that I needed to become the person that I did. In other words, struggle and sacrifice during hard times.
Now,
but it was enjoyable.
It sounds like you don't have brothers and sisters. You're an only child?
No.
Oh,
no,
okay.
no.
Okay.
I had 4 brothers and sisters. I had 1 brother and 3 sisters, and I was the youngest.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
So you were the youngest.
I was the youngest.
Now, what kind of a youngest kid were you?
Bad.
Bad.
How about that?
And spoiled.
Okay, spoiled, yeah.
Bad and spoiled. But at the same time, being the youngest child in the house, I was the one, particularly from my sisters, that got beat up all the time.
Not from the sisters.
Oh, yeah, no question about it.
Okay. So now what high school did you go to in Youngstown?
I went to Youngstown South High School.
Okay.
In Youngstown. I went to James Hillman Junior High, and I went to Grant Elementary.
And but you were a very good student, right?
Yeah, I was a decent student.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. And then went on to Albion College?
I went to Albion College in Michigan.
Yeah. And quite a sports guy there at Albion, like a 4-letter man. Am I saying that correctly? You were involved in all the sports.
Football, baseball, track, and baseball, football, track, and what's the 4th one?
Football, track, baseball.
Yeah,
Did you say baseball?
I said baseball.
Okay.
Football, basketball.
Basketball.
Yeah,
okay, basketball.
Yeah, all 4 sports. I earned 13 letters when I was in college.
Wow.
Yeah, and the idea was, I was a sort of a, you know, big star in a small atmosphere. Because back in those days, going to college, in my family, to give you my economic background, if I didn't get an athletic scholarship, I wouldn't have been able to go to college. So I had an academic scholarship, but I was fortunate enough to make the decision to go to a school, which was a smaller school, when I had scholarship offers, athletic scholarship offers to schools like Michigan, University of Michigan, Stanford University, University of Miami. I went to a school where as long as I kept a B average, I could keep my scholarship.
Keep your scholarship.
Okay.
So if I decided to stop playing sports, or if I got hurt and couldn't play, as long as I had a B average, I could stay in school.
Okay, so
And
good.
to me,
you
it
had
was
a
an easy
balance.
choice.
It was a good balance between academics and athletics.
But it was a necessity.
Okay.
Because if I got hurt and couldn't play and I was out of school, would I lose my college? I'd be out of school because my family couldn't provide resources for me.
Okay.
But your family, your father, I understand, was deacon in the church, so you had that faith background from a very young child,
Yeah,
correct?
I was born and raised in the church, baptized, First Baptist Church, Third Baptist Church in Youngstown, Ohio. And my mother was an usher and my father was a deacon.
Okay, right.
And my father was also vice chairman of the Mahoning County Republican Party.
Oh,
So
okay.
we started out in politics
So
early.
you think that was? Do you think that might have been your first introduction to getting into the whole realm of politics because Dad was involved and he'd be involved in family?
It was my first introduction to the importance of voting.
Okay.
But it clearly was not my first introduction to getting into politics. I had no interest in getting into politics, you know, when I was growing up. My whole
Right.
thing was sports and academics.
Okay.
That was it.
And so tell me a little bit more about Albion, because I know, is it a Methodist school? Has
It's a
it
Methodist
been that
school. It's a
way?
private Methodist school.
Okay. And then there, I believe you met your wife there, is
Yes,
that
I did.
correct? Okay,
Yeah.
tell us about that.
Okay. When I did my practice teaching at Albion High School, my wife was a student in class.
Okay.
When I did, and that's when I met her. I knew her family because I met them at church. But I got to know her and her family when I was doing my practice teaching.
Okay.
And, you know, we started dating. And then when I graduated from college, she graduated from high school. I went into the service, and she went on to college.
Okay.
And she graduated from Albion College, too, 4 years later. The interesting thing about that is we did go together and what have you. And when I was overseas in the Army in Germany, I got a Dear John letter from her. You know,
Oh my
Oh,
goodness! Not the
no.
Dear John.
yeah, and you know what that did to my ego?
That was like.
Yeah.
All right, you know, we got it. I know we still have a lot more questions. I want to come back to that at some point, but we want to talk about, you know, at some point you were here in Cleveland. You've done some remarkable, great thing. I think Stephanie said earlier. You have been. Someone called you like the political guru.
Or, well,
wanna say it?
master political organizer and manager, campaign strategist and consultant. And yeah, you know, you have been, I guess I would say, the force behind so many winning campaigns in Ohio. Some of those being, of course, Carl Stokes and
Louis Stokes.
excuse me, our mayors, Louis
You
Stokes,
got
Michael White,
Mike White, Frank Jackson. You were part of Jesse Jackson's campaign.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I don't. We can go down the list. But how were you part of such a winning team? I mean, how were you able to pull this winning team?
What does it take to win?
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of that comes from the training from my father and watching him, you know, do his political stuff. I knew how to engage and involve people in activities. Secondly, I think the best training for anything is sports.
Okay.
Because in sports, you have to be a team player. You have to have a plan. You have to have a strategy. You have to know the weakness of your opposition.
Okay.
And then also you have to be strong enough to accept defeat when it occurs, and it's going to happen, and then not get overwhelmed when you win. And see, those are the kind of principles and conditions that you need to go into anything, whether it's business or whether it's sports or whether it's politics. And I could use those type of elements to help me in political activities.
So
I
the
love it.
sports is
This
just
is
more
sports.
than just for the game. You know, it's more than a game.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
it
because
teaches you leadership skills and all of that.
Well, in addition to having some athletic ability, I was more of a cerebral ball player.
Okay.
In other words, I just outsmarted, you know, the opposition. You know, I'd watch the film and play, and I would take advantage of their weaknesses. And so that type of training helped me when I started my own business. When I started the insurance business, being able to organize,
Right.
strategize, and plan.
Because we haven't
same
touched
element.
upon that
You didn't
actually
talk
at
about
all,
insurance
about the
company.
Pinckney
Yeah.
Perry insurance company that I would say you founded it. Is that the correct
Yes.
term?
Yeah.
With your partner?
Yeah, Charles Perry.
Charles
we started
Perry.
together.
Yeah, and so did you think that you were going to do that for the long haul, or did you always kind of know you were going to do something in politics because you enjoyed it so much?
Well, I can tell you this, Stephanie. It was never about politics.
Okay.
It was
When I-
always about
when I-
sports. It was sports.
Anthony, when I got out of the Army and came to Cleveland, I came to go to law school. I entered law school, and I went to law school for a year, and I ran out of money. And so that summer I went to work for this insurance company. It
Okay.
happened to be an African-American insurance company. The first experience I had with blacks who were in business. And so you had to have a suit, shirt, tie on every day, and I liked that. And all you did was go out and talk to people and sell insurance. And to me, that wasn't difficult at all. But I did it, when I started it, I was only going to do it for, for a year or so, make some money, and go back to law school. But after I got out there and I started making money and I got promoted in the company to management, and at the end of the year, I was making more money than I ever thought I could make, and I was enjoying it.
And you were the first, I believe, African-American $1 million producer. So for like 5 years in a row. Tell us, how'd you do
You
that?
did some good research,
Yeah,
didn't you?
yeah. We know people. We know people.
Well, I was the first black agent appointed by the Prudential Insurance Company in the country in 1963. And I went to work for them. Yes, for 4 consecutive years, I was a $1 million producer with them and belonged in their $1 million club. And I stayed with Prudential for 6 years. I learned everything that they had to teach me, and they were good trainers. Then I realized I was never going to become the president of Prudential as long as I worked. So I decided I would take what they taught me, and I'd go out and start my own insurance agency, and that's what I did. And I never went back to law school because I was in a position that I could hire.
Because you were
lawyers.
making millions,
Good
so
move.
you figured
I
you could
wasn't
make
making millions, but I was-
okay,
yeah,
well, you
but I was
were
okay.
producing millions.
Producing
though.
millions.
Yeah,
Producer, is this a good time to ask for $20 right now?
Yeah, you get that.
I can add.
That's okay. So, I don't know if we want to talk a little bit more about the politics before we go to commercial.
I'm just curious. Here's one question I have. With all the campaigns that you've been a part of, and or even some of the sports, like even the Bobby Mitchell having to, almost being his campaign person, being his sports agent at some point, have you ever thought yourself to run for office?
Yes.
I know you've done city council and you've done school board.
Well, I was on the school board.
Did you run? That's the big question.
Yes, I did.
I did some
Okay.
research and it looked like you did run.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I was appointed to the school board, and then I ran for election, and then I ran another time for re-election.
Okay.
And I was president of the school board for 8 years.
Right.
And then I was Carl Stokes' campaign manager, and then I was his executive assistant when he was at City Hall.
Okay.
When Carl decided not to run for re-election, I was sort of drafted by the African American community to run.
And you
to
did
succeed
run
him,
for
and I did.
mayor.
All right.
And I did.
I had to get that clarity.
And I ran in 71, I lost. And I ran in 75, and I lost.
Now, how was that different, though, from doing the political organizing and the strategy? Do you think maybe one of the reasons you did not win was because you like doing the other better?
Well, I think, Stephanie, it's a question. You cannot be a candidate and a campaign manager,
Okay.
you see? And I'm more comfortable being a campaign manager. And when I was a candidate, it was difficult for me to keep my hands and my mouth out of the running of the campaign. You see?
Right.
And so I think that contributed more to my lack of success than anything else. But after I lost the election in 75, I ran for re-election of the school board in 77. Then I decided I would never run for political office again. I didn't want it. I just didn't want to do that. But I was always happy in being the person behind the scene.
Okay.
Doing the strategizing, doing the organizing, and doing the planning. And that's what I enjoy doing.
Okay. Well, that's a good place to wrap it up. So we are going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we will be joined by the Reverend E. Theophilus Cavaness, pastor of the Greater Abyssinia Baptist Church. So stay with us. We'll be right back with another look.